"Take off your helmet," the alien queen ordered. Then she froze when she saw the human. The throne hall stretched endlessly, a cathedral of alien architecture that seemed alive with whispers of power and fear. Towers of translucent metal rose toward the ceiling, catching the pale light that shone from the energy panels above. Every surface reflected authority, every shadow concealed the watchful eyes of the queen's guards. At the far end, atop a platform of blackened crystal, sat the alien queen. Her presence commanded silence, her figure draped in robes that shimmered like molten silver. Despite her beauty, there was a sharpness in her gaze, a cold edge that made even seasoned diplomats hesitate. On the polished floor below, Captain Elias Rowan knelt. His armor was scratched and worn from the skirmishes that had brought him here, and his helmet, though intact, did little to hide the tension in his posture. Unlike other humans the galaxy had captured, Elias did not tremble. He did not bow his head in submission. His fists were clenched, not in defiance but in determination. He had faced worse than alien queens and imperial courts. He had faced death countless times on distant planets, under skies that no human should have survived. And somehow he had always survived. The hall smelled faintly of ozone and polished metal. The murmurs of council members and guards filled the room, a soft hum that emphasized the vast emptiness around them. Every eye was on Elias, a single human among hundreds of alien beings of all shapes and sizes. Aliens with scaled skin, extra limbs, and eyes that reflected entire star systems had gathered to witness this moment. Some were curious, others amused. They had all seen humans before. They had always expected the same result: weakness, fear, failure. But Elias did not match their expectations. The queen raised her hand, a signal for silence that immediately stilled the room. Every whisper vanished, every step halted. Even the guards froze, waiting for her words. The room felt heavier, as if the very air was bending to her will. Her voice, when it came, was clear, cold, and commanding. "Take off your helmet," she said. The words echoed through the hall, carrying the weight of authority and the unspoken threat of consequences. Elias looked up, meeting her gaze through the reflection of his visor. He could see nothing but calm intelligence in her eyes. The murmurs resumed quietly among the council members, a low rustle of disbelief. No human had ever been called to do such a thing. No human had ever been allowed to stand before the queen herself without trembling. Elias exhaled slowly and unbuckled the helmet straps. The motion was deliberate, controlled, a signal that he was not afraid. The guards shifted uneasily. Some whispered to one another in languages that had not been spoken for centuries, words that expressed astonishment, fear, and curiosity all at once. The queen leaned slightly forward, her expression unreadable. As Elias lifted the helmet from his head, a low, almost imperceptible gasp escaped from the back of the hall. Eyes widened. The queen's own pupils dilated, though her face remained still. For a fraction of a second, the entire hall seemed to hold its breath. The human's face, revealed at last, was ordinary in no way. It carried a familiarity that no one could explain, a presence that seemed to resonate with something long buried within the queen herself. Elias' eyes met hers directly, unflinching and steady. There was no fear in his gaze, no plea for mercy, only awareness. He was aware of the history, aware of the danger, aware of the countless expectations stacked against him. Yet he remained calm, as if he had already faced what was to come and found it lacking in consequence. The queen's hand hovered in the air for a moment, then lowered slightly. Her advisors were whispering rapidly now, their voices overlapping in a chaotic chorus. Some claimed it was coincidence, a trick of lighting and angle, but the queen did not need their reassurances. Deep inside, she felt recognition. Something about this human mirrored images she had only seen in the oldest archives, in murals and statues so ancient that most of the knowledge of them had been forgotten. The first guardian, a figure of legend, a protector of the galaxy who had disappeared millennia ago, seemed to be staring back at her from the human's face. The council members, oblivious to the queen's internal shock, began to murmur about protocol. One of the elder ambassadors, a being with translucent wings and a voice like chimes, suggested that the human should be executed immediately. Another, a shorter, stockier alien with multiple eyes, argued for interrogation first. But the queen did not speak. She could not. Something primal had taken hold, a mixture of awe and fear, and for the first time in centuries she found herself unsure of what action to take. Elias stood slowly, hands still at his sides. His movements were precise, controlled, but there was a quiet power in them that demanded attention. He did not raise his voice. He did not make demands, yet the energy he carried filled the hall more effectively than any weapon. The guards shifted again, unsure whether to advance, retreat, or simply stand still. The queen finally spoke, her voice softer now but no less commanding. "Explain yourself," she said. Elias tilted his head slightly, considering her words. "I am Captain Elias Rowan of the Terran Defense Fleet," he said. His voice was calm, measured, carrying the confidence of someone who had faced impossible odds and survived. "I do not seek war with your empire. I only seek to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is why I fought the pirate raiders. That is why I stand here unafraid before you." The queen's eyes narrowed. She had heard this kind of speech before from diplomats and generals, and yet something about it felt different. There was no pretense, no attempt to manipulate. There was only honesty, and honesty was rare in any species. The council members were confused by her hesitation. Whispers grew louder, questions asked, and immediately suppressed. Who was this human? Why did the queen hesitate? Elias continued, taking a step forward. "I have faced your fleets, your technology, and I have seen your warriors. I am aware of the differences between our species, but I am not here as a threat. I am here because I value life, all life. Yours, mine, theirs, that is all." Silence returned to the hall, heavier than before. The queen's mind raced, piecing together fragments of memory and legend. She remembered stories of the first guardian, the protector who had once united worlds against chaos, who had appeared in times of great peril and vanished just as suddenly. The resemblance was uncanny, more than mere coincidence. The shape of Elias' jaw, the steady determination in his eyes, the way he held himself with quiet authority, it all matched. A subtle tremor ran through the queen's advisors. Some dared to glance at one another, fear and disbelief mirrored in their expressions. Others whispered that the human could be a clone, a trick, or even a spy equipped with advanced technology. None of their words reached the queen. She was caught in a web of thought that spanned centuries, connecting legends, prophecies, and fears she had long buried. Elias' presence challenged everything she had known about humans. They were supposed to be fragile, expendable, barely capable of surviving their own planets. Yet here stood one human who embodied courage, intelligence, and calm strength simultaneously. Here stood one human who did not act out of fear or instinct, but out of deliberate choice, guided by a principle that seemed almost alien to the galaxy: empathy. The queen finally leaned back slightly, signaling that the initial shock was over, but the tension remained. "You speak boldly for one who kneels," she said. "Do you understand the risk you take in my throne hall?" "I do," Elias replied without hesitation. "I understand it completely. But I also understand something more important, that the galaxy will survive or fall based on the choices we make when faced with impossible odds. I choose to protect, not destroy. That is my risk. That is my duty." The queen's fingers twitched slightly over the armrest of her throne. She had not expected to feel respect for a human, nor had she anticipated the unease that accompanied it. She had ruled empires, commanded fleets, and crushed rebellions without hesitation, yet this human stirred something she could not define. Perhaps it was the echo of the Guardian. Perhaps it was something deeper, older, woven into the fabric of the galaxy itself. The council remained uncertain, some still whispering that she should strike now. But she did nothing. She studied Elias, aware that every second she hesitated was a statement in itself. He was unarmed, vulnerable in ways that should have invited violence, yet he radiated a quiet strength that seemed impossible for one so alone. Elias noticed the whispers but did not falter. He did not plead, did not try to charm, did not attempt deception. He merely stood, and in doing so, he transformed the throne hall from a place of intimidation into a space where the unexpected could happen. He became a symbol, unspoken but undeniable. Humanity, when unbound by fear, could achieve what no one imagined. The queen finally spoke again, her voice firmer, laced with authority and curiosity. "Your courage is noted, human, yet words alone are not enough to earn my trust. You will remain under observation. Every action you take will be measured, every decision examined." "Do you understand?" "I understand," Elias replied. His tone was steady, respectful, and unwavering. "And I accept it." For the first time in the history of her empire, the queen hesitated to issue an immediate command. She felt the weight of centuries pressing against her, the gravity of legends long forgotten. And she realized, with a chill that ran through her spine, that the galaxy had changed the moment this human removed his helmet. The murmurs in the hall shifted, from amusement to curiosity, from doubt to cautious respect. Aliens who had expected weakness now watched closely, unsure what this human would do next. And as Elias lowered his gaze briefly, then raised it again to meet the Queen's eyes, the unspoken truth became clear. This human was unlike any they had ever faced. The throne hall was silent once more, but the silence was not empty. It was charged with possibility, with tension, and with the unacknowledged awe that a single human could inspire. The first part of the encounter was complete, but the story had only just begun. The galaxy, the Queen, and Elias himself all stood on the edge of something monumental. Something that could redefine what it meant to be human, and what it meant to be a ruler in a galaxy filled with wonders, dangers, and secrets yet untold. The throne hall, which had moments ago been filled with tension and quiet awe, now felt charged with a different energy. The alien queen remained seated upon her throne, her eyes locked on Elias Rowan. There was something in the human's calm gaze that refused to be ignored. She had seen courage before, strength before, even defiance before, but none of them carried the quiet authority that Elias radiated. He was not loud, he was not arrogant, and yet every movement, every breath commanded attention. The council members whispered among themselves, trying to fill the silence with chatter. Some argued that the human could not be what he appeared to be. Others wondered if he was somehow connected to the long-lost First Guardian, a protector whose existence had become legend over millennia. But their speculations did nothing to ease the tension in the Queen's mind. She felt an unfamiliar stirring, a sense that something monumental had begun, and that the outcome was not entirely in her hands. Finally, the Queen's voice cut through the murmurs like a blade. "Human," she said, her tone sharper now, "you have removed your helmet. You have shown that you are not afraid of me or this court. Yet courage alone does not earn trust. Your species is known for its impulsiveness, its recklessness. I need to know if you are capable of understanding the consequences of your actions." Elias nodded slowly. "I understand, Your Majesty. I do not claim to be perfect, but I act with purpose. Every decision I make, every step I take, I weigh it carefully. That is the way I have survived this far." The Queen leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand as she studied him. There was a flicker of recognition in her eyes, something buried deep in the recesses of memory. She remembered the murals, the statues, the records of the First Guardian. They spoke of a being who appeared at critical moments in history, a protector whose presence changed the fate of entire worlds. Elias bore an uncanny resemblance to that figure, not only in appearance, but in the air of calm authority he carried. An advisor, unable to contain himself, spoke up. "Your Majesty, it could be a trick, perhaps a genetic experiment, a spy, or an impostor designed to destabilize the Empire. We cannot simply trust a human based on appearances." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "And yet," she said, her voice low but powerful, "there is something about him that defies deception. Observe him closely, but do not interfere. Let him prove himself." The council murmured their agreement, though many still doubted. They could not yet see what the Queen saw, a human whose very presence demanded attention, whose quiet strength unsettled centuries of expectation. Elias remained standing, his posture relaxed but alert. He did not attempt to charm the Queen, nor did he show any sign of fear. His hands were at his sides, empty, yet they seemed to carry the weight of experience, of battles fought and survived. Every guard, every advisor, every council member felt the subtle shift in energy. This human was not ordinary. After a moment, the Queen's expression softened slightly. "You will remain here under observation," she said. "Your actions will be monitored, your thoughts, your choices, your character, all of it will be tested. Do you accept this?" "I accept," Elias replied calmly. And so the process began. At first, the tests were simple. He was asked to navigate complex hallways and chambers under surveillance, to interact with alien soldiers and civilians, and to make choices that would determine the safety of others. Each scenario was designed to exploit human weaknesses, tempting him with shortcuts, forcing him to act against his principles, presenting him with impossible choices. But Elias met every challenge with the same quiet determination. When presented with an opportunity to secure his own safety by betraying others, he refused. When tempted with offers of power or wealth, he did not hesitate to act in the interest of fairness and protection. Each decision, though small on the surface, revealed a character of extraordinary depth. The queen observed him closely. She noted the way he spoke to alien guards, not with condescension, not with fear, but with respect. She watched how he helped those in distress, even when he himself faced danger. She saw how he assessed situations logically, combining careful observation with intuition and experience. And in every moment he remained calm, never panicked, never reckless. The council members began to murmur again, this time with a mix of astonishment and fear. They whispered that perhaps humans were not as weak as history had claimed. Some argued that Elias could be a force capable of challenging even the strongest alien empires if properly motivated. Others, more cautious, suggested that he might still be a threat to the queen herself, though they could not explain why. One of the more skeptical advisors approached. "Human," he said, "if you are truly as capable as you claim, then answer this. Why do you help others at your own risk? Why do you not seek power or advantage? Surely your species would survive better if you were more self-serving." Elias considered the question carefully. "Because," he said finally, "true strength is measured not by how much you take, but by how much you protect. The galaxy is full of life, and life is valuable, not just my own, not just that of my species, but all of it. If I can save even one being without causing greater harm, then I have done my duty." The queen felt a chill at his words. They were simple, yet profound. They carried a truth that resonated with something deep within her, something she had not felt in centuries. She remembered the first guardian again, the protector whose purpose had been to maintain balance and safeguard life. Elias' words echoed the same philosophy, and the resemblance was impossible to ignore. The next series of tests was more demanding. Elias was sent into simulations of battle, facing opponents with advanced technology far beyond human design. Each scenario tested his strategy, his leadership, and his resilience, and each time he succeeded. Not because of superior technology or alien intelligence, but because of human ingenuity, adaptability, and courage. He observed his enemies, anticipated their moves, and used his environment to his advantage. Every challenge seemed tailored to his weaknesses, yet he overcame them with a combination of logic, intuition, and unshakable resolve. Meanwhile, the queen continued to watch from her throne. She saw the alien guards whispering among themselves, some openly expressing admiration, others reluctant to acknowledge it. She saw the council members' doubts grow as the humans' actions consistently defied their expectations. And she felt something she could not name, a sense that history itself was unfolding before her eyes, and that the choices made in this hall would ripple across the galaxy. One day, during a particularly intense simulation, Elias faced a scenario where he had to choose between saving a group of alien civilians or securing an important strategic asset for the Queen's empire. The choice was framed to be impossible. Most participants would have chosen the asset, prioritizing power and control. Elias chose to save the civilians. He led them to safety, calculated their escape, and ensured that no harm came to them, even though it meant the strategic asset would be lost. The queen leaned forward in her throne, her expression unreadable. She felt a mix of relief, astonishment, and fear. No human, or any being for that matter, had ever prioritized compassion over advantage in her empire. And yet here was Elias, demonstrating that courage and morality could exist alongside intelligence and skill. As the weeks passed, the human's reputation within the palace grew. Guards spoke of him in quiet admiration. Civilians who had been allowed to interact with him told stories of his fairness and courage. Even the council began to acknowledge, albeit reluctantly, that something extraordinary was unfolding. Elias was not merely a human. He was something else entirely, an embodiment of qualities the galaxy had long dismissed in humanity: resilience, empathy, and unshakable courage. The queen herself was changing. She found herself thinking about him even when he was not present. She recalled her own decisions, her own fears, and the way she had governed through control and intimidation. And she realized that perhaps there was more to leadership than power alone. Perhaps it was also about inspiration, about standing as an example, about showing courage when others could not. Then came the day of the ultimate test. Elias was brought before the queen once more, not as a prisoner, not as a subject, but as a participant in a challenge that would determine whether he could truly earn her respect. The council had arranged a complex puzzle of diplomacy, strategy, and morality. He had to navigate alliances, prevent conflict, and make decisions that affected thousands of lives across multiple star systems, all under observation, with the threat of failure looming. Elias approached the challenge as he had every other, calmly, methodically, and with unwavering focus. He listened, analyzed, and acted, always considering the consequences of his choices. When conflict arose, he sought solutions that minimized harm. When alliances wavered, he earned trust through honesty and consistency. When opponents underestimated him, he used their assumptions to find innovative solutions that no one had foreseen. The queen watched, her heart pounding. She had seen many brilliant minds, many talented strategists, but none who combined intelligence with compassion so seamlessly. Elias' actions were not only effective, they were inspiring. Soldiers and diplomats alike began to see that a human, a being they had long dismissed, could lead, protect, and unite in ways the galaxy had never imagined. When the test concluded, the results were undeniable. Elias had succeeded beyond all expectations. He had earned not only the queen's attention but her respect. She realized, with a mixture of awe and apprehension, that this human was more than just a survivor or a soldier. He was a symbol, a reminder that strength came not from technology, not from power, but from courage, integrity, and the willingness to act for the greater good. The council erupted into murmurs, some praising him, some fearful of what his presence might mean. The queen remained silent, her mind racing. She understood that humanity, through this one individual, had shown qualities that no empire, no technology, and no weapon could match. And she understood, too, that the story of Elias Rowan was only beginning. As Elias knelt once more before the throne, the queen's gaze softened. She saw not just a human, but a force that could change the galaxy. She realized that legends were not born from power alone. They were born from courage, from choices made in the face of impossible odds, from the unwavering resolve to do what is right. And in that moment, she knew that the first guardian's spirit, whether through prophecy, coincidence, or fate, had returned in the form of a human named Elias Rowan. The hall remained silent, but it was a charged silence, filled with anticipation, with awe, and with the quiet understanding that the galaxy had shifted in a single moment. Humans were no longer merely weak, expendable creatures. Through Elias, they had demonstrated something far greater, the capacity to inspire, to lead, and to embody the best of what any being could be. And the alien queen, for the first time in centuries, felt a mixture of fear and hope. Fear of what this human could become, and hope that perhaps, through him, the galaxy could be saved from the chaos that loomed ever closer. The days following Elias Rowan's remarkable success in the trials were filled with anticipation and tension throughout the throne hall. The queen had begun to speak with him more frequently, not as a prisoner or a subject, but as someone whose presence demanded attention. Even the council began to regard him with a mixture of caution and respect. Still, the queen knew that admiration alone was not enough. A human, no matter how remarkable, had yet to prove himself in the face of the true dangers that lurked beyond the walls of her palace. It was during one such council meeting that the warning arrived. A fleet of rogue warships, far larger and more heavily armed than any of the Queen's scouts had reported, appeared near the outer systems of her empire. They moved with precision and speed, striking planets indiscriminately. The Council feared that the Empire's reputation, already fragile in the border systems, could collapse if these attackers were not stopped immediately. The Queen, who had studied Elias closely, knew that this would be the ultimate test, not in a controlled simulation but in real conflict. "Captain Rowan," she said, her voice steady but urgent, "you have observed, strategized, and succeeded where others have failed. Now I must ask more of you. Will you lead a small strike team to intercept these invaders?" Elias inclined his head respectfully. "I will do what is necessary, Your Majesty," the Queen's advisors protested immediately. They argued that no human could possibly survive such a mission, let alone succeed. They offered fleets of advanced ships and elite soldiers, insisting that the human should remain in a safe position while their most experienced commanders led the effort. But the Queen silenced them. She had seen what Elias was capable of. She had observed his intelligence, his courage, his unwavering moral compass. and she had begun to suspect that humanity, when unbound by fear, could achieve what no alien force could. Elias was given command of a small squadron, equipped not with the Empire's most advanced technology, but with ships designed to test his ingenuity and leadership. The fleet he led was modest, dwarfed by the rogue warships approaching the border systems. Yet Elias remained calm. He studied the enemy fleet's movements, analyzed their strategies, and began to formulate a plan that relied not on sheer firepower but on creativity, observation, and timing. As they approached the outer systems, the difference between human intuition and alien assumptions became apparent. The enemy expected a frontal assault, a demonstration of overwhelming force. Elias, however, had noticed patterns in their attacks that the automated systems and seasoned alien commanders had missed. He predicted their movements, identified weak points, and devised a strategy that turned the enemy's strength into a liability. During the first engagement, Elias' fleet dodged the enemy's initial barrage with precision that seemed impossible. The enemy, confident in their superiority, underestimated the humans' ability to anticipate their maneuvers. Using clever coordination and unconventional tactics, Elias' squadron disabled key warships, not through brute force, but through clever sabotage and exploitation of the enemy's own momentum. The Queen watched through the palace's observation systems, her expression unreadable but tense. For the first time, she allowed herself to hope that the human might succeed where countless others would have failed. She had already begun to see that Elias was more than a soldier. He was a tactician, a leader, and a beacon of human potential. After the initial skirmish, the enemy fleet regrouped and launched a coordinated counterattack. The stakes had grown higher. Every choice Elias made now could mean the difference between victory and total annihilation. Yet he remained calm, issuing orders with clarity and precision. He inspired his crew not with threats, not with fear, but with trust. The soldiers under his command responded instinctively, coordinating in ways that no simulation could have prepared them for. As the battle raged on, it became evident that Elias' strategy was not just effective, it was transformative. The enemy, baffled by his tactics, began to falter. Their movements grew hesitant, their attacks uncoordinated. In contrast, Elias' squadron moved as one, fluid and adaptive. His ability to see the bigger picture, to anticipate consequences, and to act decisively turned what seemed like a hopeless engagement into a contest of skill, intelligence, and courage. The turning point came when Elias identified the command vessel of the rogue fleet. It was heavily shielded and protected, but he noticed that the ships guarding it were too far apart, creating a vulnerability in their formation. Seizing the opportunity, Elias led a daring maneuver. He directed a series of precision strikes, not to destroy the vessel outright, but to disable its communications and navigation systems. Without the ability to coordinate their fleet, the rogue warships fell into disarray. Victory was achieved not through raw power, but through ingenuity, observation, and the ability to make choices under pressure. The Queen's throne room erupted into whispers and murmurs as her advisors processed the implications. A human had led a fleet to victory against overwhelming odds. The legend of humanity's supposed weakness was shattered, replaced by the undeniable proof of resilience, intelligence, and courage. Upon returning to the palace, Elias did not celebrate. He did not boast. Instead, he reported the outcomes clearly, acknowledged the contributions of his crew, and began to prepare for the next challenge. The Queen observed all of this, noting how his humility and integrity set him apart from any being she had ever encountered. That evening, the Queen summoned Elias to her private chambers. The room was quiet, dimly lit, and filled with artifacts that spoke of centuries of rule. Statues of past leaders, relics from ancient battles, and holographic records of the first guardian filled the space. She studied him carefully, seeing not just a human, but a reflection of a legend she had long thought lost to history. "You have performed beyond anything I could have expected," she said, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "Your actions today have not only saved lives, but they have demonstrated the potential of your species. Yet there is more at stake than strategy and victory. There are truths you do not yet know about the galaxy, about this empire, and about your place in it." Elias listened intently. He had faced danger, he had survived countless conflicts, but the weight of destiny, of history, pressed upon him in a way that was new. He understood that the queen's words carried both warning and invitation. Whatever lay ahead would require more than skill. It would require wisdom, courage, and the kind of moral clarity that defined humanity at its best. Over the following days, Elias began to learn the depth of the Empire's secrets. The Queen allowed him access to archives that had been sealed for centuries, containing records of wars, rebellions, and mysterious phenomena that had shaped the galaxy. He studied the strategies of leaders long gone, the mistakes that had cost countless lives, and the legends of beings who had once united worlds against chaos. Through these records, he began to understand not just the Empire, but the galaxy itself. One evening, while reviewing holographic records of a past conflict, Elias discovered something that made his pulse quicken. Among the images was a figure strikingly similar to himself, leading an ancient coalition against a devastating threat. The records described this being as the First Guardian, a protector who had appeared in times of great peril and whose actions had reshaped the course of history. The realization struck him. He was somehow connected to this legacy, whether through fate, genetics, or something else entirely. When he shared this with the Queen, she remained silent for a long moment. Her expression was unreadable, yet her eyes betrayed a mix of fear, curiosity, and awe. "It cannot be coincidence," she said finally. "The resemblance, the actions, the timing, it all points to something greater than any of us can fully comprehend." The Council, when informed of these discoveries, reacted with disbelief and skepticism. Some dismissed it as legend, others feared the implications. But the Queen trusted Elias. She saw in him not only the courage to face enemies, but also the integrity to wield power responsibly. She understood that his presence was a turning point, not just for the Empire, but for the galaxy. As days turned into weeks, Elias continued to train, lead, and strategize. He formed alliances with alien species previously considered hostile, brokered peace in regions torn by conflict, and inspired those around him to act with courage and compassion. Everywhere he went, he challenged expectations, reshaping perceptions of what humans could achieve. One night, after a long day of council meetings and strategic planning, the Queen observed him quietly from her chambers. She saw a human who embodied the very best of his species: intelligence, courage, empathy, and the ability to inspire others. She realized that humanity's potential had been underestimated for centuries, and that Elias was living proof of what they could accomplish when not constrained by fear or prejudice. The first major confrontation with the rogue fleet had tested Elias' skill and leadership, but it was only the beginning. Greater challenges awaited, ones that would demand not only his intelligence and courage, but also his moral clarity and ability to inspire unity across the galaxy. The Queen knew that she had witnessed the emergence of a force that could change the course of history, and that the galaxy itself would never be the same. In the silence of her chambers, the Queen reflected on what she had seen. A human had stood before her, unafraid, and had acted with wisdom and courage beyond expectation. A human had led alien soldiers to victory against overwhelming odds. A human had inspired hope where there had been fear. And in that moment, the Queen understood something profound. Humanity, in its unassuming strength and boundless potential, could be a force unlike any other in the galaxy. Elias Rowan had proven that courage, intelligence, and integrity were not limited to legend. They lived in humans, and he had brought them to the forefront, showing that even in a galaxy of advanced technology, ancient empires, and formidable beings, humanity could rise, endure, and inspire. And as the stars outside the palace shimmered in distant constellations, the Queen realized that the story of Elias and the story of humanity was only beginning. The galaxy had witnessed the emergence of a new hope, one born not of weapons or power, but of courage, morality, and the unyielding spirit of a single human who dared to stand against the impossible. The palace was alive with tension. Word of Elias Rowan's victories had spread far beyond the throne hall, reaching the ears of rival factions and hostile elements throughout the empire. The Queen, who had observed him closely, knew that his true test had not yet come. It was one thing to succeed in simulations, to inspire soldiers, and to lead a fleet against rogue warships. It was another to confront betrayal, political scheming, and a threat that sought to destabilize the entire galaxy. It began with subtle signs. Reports came of sabotage within the palace. Supply lines were disrupted, critical communications went dark, and elite guards were discovered unconscious in strange locations. Initially, the council dismissed these incidents as accidents or minor malfunctions, but the Queen had seen enough throughout her centuries of rule to recognize a pattern. Someone within the Empire sought to exploit the attention focused on the human. They wanted to prove that humanity was not to be trusted, that Elias' victories were flukes, and that the Empire could collapse if left unchecked. "Captain Rowan," the Queen said, summoning him to her chambers, "there are forces at work that wish to undermine everything we have achieved. You have seen the successes, but now you must face deception, betrayal, and danger of a different kind. Are you prepared?" Elias bowed slightly. "I have faced danger before, Your Majesty. I will meet it again. Tell me what you need me to do." The Queen studied him carefully. She saw the unwavering focus in his eyes, the readiness to act despite uncertainty, and the calm assurance that had defined him from the moment he removed his helmet. She knew that this mission would test more than his courage or intelligence. It would challenge his ability to discern truth from deception and to act decisively when lives hung in the balance. The first act of betrayal came quickly. A trusted advisor, someone who had served the Queen for decades, was discovered to be secretly communicating with the rogue elements outside the palace. Their plan was audacious. While the Empire's attention was fixed on external threats, internal forces would seize control, destabilizing governance and inciting rebellion across multiple star systems. Elias was tasked with uncovering the full extent of the conspiracy. He moved through the palace with quiet precision, observing patterns, listening to whispers, and piecing together fragments of information. Unlike most beings who relied on intimidation or force, Elias used careful observation, deduction, and empathy to understand the motivations and methods of those around him. He began to notice subtle signs, hesitation in speech, inconsistent reports, and guarded behavior among certain council members. One evening, he intercepted a coded message intended for the rogue fleet. The encryption was complex, designed to obscure meaning from alien minds, yet Elias' human intuition allowed him to recognize the patterns. He decoded the message and discovered a plan to attack the capital while the Queen's attention was focused elsewhere. The timing was precise, the strike coordinated to coincide with the arrival of enemy reinforcements, and the consequences would have been catastrophic. Without hesitation, Elias presented the evidence to the Queen. She reviewed it carefully, her mind racing with the implications. The conspirators had not only betrayed her trust, but threatened the stability of the entire empire. Yet she remained composed, knowing that Elias was capable of addressing the threat in a way that no alien leader could match. "Captain," she said, "the conspirators will act tonight. You must intercept them before they can reach the palace. You will not have the fleet for support. Your success will depend on strategy, timing, and the loyalty you can inspire in those around you." Elias nodded. "Understood. I will act immediately." He gathered a small team of soldiers, a mix of humans and trusted aliens who had witnessed his leadership firsthand. Their mission was clear: prevent the conspirators from reaching critical areas, protect the Queen, and neutralize the threat without unnecessary casualties. Elias moved quickly, coordinating the team with precision and clarity. He relied not on overwhelming force, but on anticipation, clever positioning, and the ability to adapt in real time. As they approached the first target location, Elias noticed something unexpected. The conspirators had set traps designed to slow pursuit and create confusion. Security drones had been tampered with, corridors blocked, and communication lines jammed. Many would have panicked under the circumstances, but Elias remained focused. He calmly assessed each obstacle, directing his team to navigate with care, neutralize threats efficiently, and maintain clear communication. The confrontation that followed was intense. The conspirators, confident in their advantage, attempted to overpower Elias and his small team. But Elias' leadership shone in the chaos. He anticipated their movements, coordinated defensive and offensive actions, and used the environment to create opportunities for success. His human ingenuity allowed them to outmaneuver larger, better-equipped forces, turning potential disasters into calculated victories. In the throne room, the Queen observed every move through advanced surveillance arrays. She had long relied on technology to maintain control, but she realized that no system could have managed the situation as effectively as Elia's. His ability to act decisively, to inspire loyalty, and to maintain moral clarity under pressure was extraordinary. She found herself in awe, but also aware that the stakes were higher than ever. The battle reached a critical moment when the lead conspirator, an alien known for cunning and ruthlessness, attempted a direct assault on the Queen herself. Elias acted instantly. Without hesitation, he positioned himself between the conspirator and the Queen, drawing attention and coordinating his team to contain the threat. His movements were precise, deliberate, and perfectly timed. The conspirator was neutralized without loss of life, and the palace remained secure. After the confrontation, Elias took stock of the situation. He ensured that all loyal personnel were accounted for, that injured individuals received attention, and that the palace's defenses were reinforced. His actions demonstrated not only skill and courage, but also compassion and responsibility, qualities that inspired those around him and solidified his reputation as a leader. The Queen, observing from her throne, allowed herself a moment of reflection. She had witnessed countless battles, both in space and in politics, yet nothing had prepared her for the combination of strategy, courage, and moral integrity displayed by Elias. He had faced betrayal, navigated complex threats, and succeeded where others would have failed. And he had done so with humility, never seeking personal glory, only the protection of life and the stability of the empire. Word of Elias' actions spread quickly. Citizens, soldiers, and council members alike spoke of the human who had thwarted an internal rebellion, protected the Queen, and demonstrated the potential of humanity in ways that defied centuries of prejudice. The Empire's perception of humans began to shift, from fragile and expendable beings to a species capable of extraordinary courage, intelligence, and leadership. The Queen summoned Elias once more. "You have faced danger, betrayal, and the unexpected with skill and honor," she said. "Your actions have proven that humans are more than capable of shaping the fate of the galaxy. I would be negligent if I did not acknowledge the impact you have had on the Empire and on me personally." Elias bowed respectfully. "I am honored, Your Majesty, but my purpose is not personal recognition. I act to protect life and to preserve balance. That is all I have ever sought." The Queen's gaze softened, and she considered the implications. She realized that humanity's strength lay not in overwhelming technology or raw power, but in courage, ingenuity, and integrity. Elias exemplified these traits, proving that even a single human could influence the course of events on a galactic scale. In the following days, the Empire began to stabilize. Reforms were enacted to prevent future conspiracies, and the loyalty of soldiers and officials strengthened under the influence of Elias' leadership. The Queen observed the changes with a mixture of pride and cautious optimism. She had long ruled through authority and fear, but she began to see the value of inspiration, example, and moral courage as equally powerful tools of governance. Despite the triumphs, Elias remained vigilant. He knew that the galaxy was vast, filled with forces that could rise at any moment to challenge peace and stability. He continued to study, to plan, and to train, preparing for the inevitable challenges that lay ahead. His focus never wavered, and his actions continued to inspire those around him. Late one evening, as he reviewed the palace's records and strategic data, the Queen entered his study. She moved quietly, observing him at work, and for a moment neither spoke. The hum of the palace, the soft glow of the holographic displays, and the distant stars outside created a scene of calm after the storm. "You have changed the course of events in ways I cannot fully measure," she said finally. "And yet I sense that your journey is only beginning. Greater challenges await, Captain Rowan. The galaxy itself will test your abilities, your wisdom, and your resolve. Are you ready for what lies ahead?" Elias looked up, his expression calm but determined. "I am ready, Your Majesty. Whatever the galaxy sends, I will face it. Not for glory, not for power, but to protect those who cannot protect themselves." The Queen nodded. "Then we shall face it together, and the legacy of your actions will shape the galaxy for generations to come." And so, as the stars outside the palace shimmered and distant planets continued their silent revolutions, Elias Rowan prepared for the next phase of his journey. The threats would grow larger, the stakes higher, and the challenges more complex. Yet through it all, he would remain steadfast, an example of humanity at its finest. The galaxy had witnessed courage, ingenuity, and moral clarity embodied in one human, and it would never again underestimate the potential of his species. In that moment, the Queen understood that leadership, true leadership, was not about fear or domination alone. It was about inspiring others, protecting life, and acting with unwavering integrity. Elias Rowan had shown her, and the galaxy, that the human spirit could rise above expectation, overcome the impossible, and illuminate the path forward even in the darkest of times. The galaxy had grown restless. News of Elias Rowan's victories and the thwarting of the internal conspiracy had spread across star systems, reaching distant planets and alien civilizations. Many were inspired, some intimidated, and others quietly resentful. The Queen, aware of the shifting tides, realized that the coming days would test not just Elias' courage and intellect, but the very foundation of her empire. She summoned him to the throne hall. "You have proven yourself beyond expectation," she said, her voice steady, yet filled with a gravity that reflected the stakes. "But the challenges ahead will not be simple. A coalition of rival empires and rogue factions is forming. They seek to exploit the recent chaos and strike at our borders. You have led us to victory in isolated battles, but the galaxy itself will now test our strength and resolve. Are you prepared?" Elias nodded. "I am ready, Your Majesty. We have faced chaos before. We will face it again, and we will succeed, not through fear or force alone, but through strategy, intelligence, and courage." The Queen studied him for a long moment, seeing the same unwavering determination that had guided him through every trial. "Then you shall lead the combined forces. You will coordinate fleets, secure alliances, and protect our worlds. This is no longer a test. It is a responsibility, and the galaxy will watch your actions closely." The preparations began immediately. Alien diplomats, generals, and scientists gathered to discuss strategy, while Elias immersed himself in plans, simulations, and historical data. He analyzed the coalition's strengths and weaknesses, predicted their likely moves, and began devising a strategy that relied on precise coordination, surprise, and the ingenuity that had become his hallmark. Unlike most commanders, Elias did not rely solely on advanced technology or overwhelming firepower. He focused on leveraging the unique abilities of each species under his command, fostering trust and collaboration, and inspiring confidence. He spoke to alien soldiers not as subordinates but as partners. He listened to their ideas, integrated their suggestions, and built a sense of unity that transcended species and culture. The first engagement occurred at the outermost systems. The coalition had underestimated the speed and coordination of Elias' forces. Using a combination of ambush tactics, misdirection, and careful positioning, he neutralized key enemy vessels without unnecessary destruction. His fleet moved as one, fluid and adaptable, responding to changing conditions with precision that left even seasoned alien commanders in awe. Meanwhile, the Queen watched from the palace, her mind focused yet heavy with the weight of responsibility. She had ruled for centuries, but she had never witnessed leadership like Elias. He was not just a tactician, he was a unifier, a symbol, and a living testament to the potential of humanity. She realized that his success was not simply a reflection of his skill, but of the values he embodied: courage, integrity, empathy, and relentless determination. As the coalition regrouped, Elias anticipated their movements. He had noticed patterns in their strategies, subtle inconsistencies that revealed their plans. Using these observations, he devised a daring maneuver, a simultaneous strike on multiple fronts that would disrupt the coalition's command structure and force them into retreat. It was a high-risk plan, but Elias' confidence inspired those under his command to follow his lead without hesitation. The battle was intense. Fleets clashed in the vastness of space, laser fire streaking across star systems, engines flaring, and explosions lighting the void. Yet amidst the chaos, Elias remained calm. He coordinated every movement, adjusted tactics in real time, and ensured that the safety of his forces and civilian populations was prioritized. Where others saw only destruction, he saw opportunity, leverage, and the chance to turn adversity into victory. During the conflict, a critical moment arose. A massive enemy dreadnought threatened to break through the outer defenses, potentially jeopardizing multiple star systems. Most commanders would have relied on overwhelming force to destroy it, risking countless lives in the process. Elias chose a different path. Using clever maneuvering, environmental hazards, and coordinated strikes, he immobilized the dreadnought, neutralizing its threat without unnecessary loss of life. The enemy forces, stunned by the ingenuity, began to falter, and the tide of the battle shifted decisively in Elia's favor. Back in the palace, the queen allowed herself a rare smile. She realized that Elias had transformed not only the battlefield, but the very perception of humans throughout the galaxy. No longer were they seen as weak or insignificant. Through a single human, entire star systems had witnessed courage, ingenuity, and leadership that transcended species. The Empire had been defended, alliances strengthened, and hope restored in a galaxy teetering on the edge of chaos. The final confrontation came when the coalition attempted a coordinated attack on the capital system. Elias anticipated their plan, predicted their routes, and positioned his forces strategically to counter the assault. What followed was a display of human ingenuity and leadership at its finest. He coordinated multiple fleets, used decoys to confuse enemy forces, and executed precise strikes to disrupt their operations. At every turn, he maintained the balance between aggression and caution, ensuring maximum effectiveness with minimal loss. During the heat of battle, Elias received word that a rogue agent had infiltrated the capital itself, intending to sabotage critical infrastructure. Without hesitation, he led a specialized team to intercept the threat. Moving with speed, precision, and careful strategy, they neutralized the rogue agent before any damage could occur. Once again, Elias demonstrated that success depended not only on strength or technology, but on awareness, foresight, and the courage to act decisively. When the dust settled, the coalition was in full retreat. Their forces were scattered, their plans disrupted, and their morale shattered. Elias' fleet had not only defended the Empire, but had turned the tables on the aggressors, forcing them to reconsider their strategies and retreat in disarray. The galaxy had witnessed a human leader orchestrate a victory that would be remembered for generations. The Queen called for a council assembly. Advisors, generals, and diplomats gathered, eager to witness the outcome. Elias stood beside the throne, calm and composed despite the enormity of the events. The council erupted in applause, some in disbelief, some in admiration, as they acknowledged the brilliance, courage, and leadership displayed by the human. "Captain Rowan," the Queen began, her voice carrying through the hall, "you have defended this empire, united disparate forces, and demonstrated that courage, intelligence, and integrity can change the course of history. You have proven the potential of humanity, and through your actions, you have shown that leadership is not bound by species, strength, or technology alone." Elias bowed respectfully. "I am honored, Your Majesty. I acted not for glory, but to protect life, maintain peace, and preserve the balance of the galaxy. The victory belongs to all who fought, all who trusted, and all who chose to act with courage." The Queen's expression softened. She had seen centuries of leadership, of ambition, of power wielded with fear and authority. Yet in Elias, she had seen something different, a leader who inspired, who protected, and who acted with unwavering moral clarity. She realized that the future of the galaxy was not dictated by weapons or domination, but by courage, wisdom, and the willingness to act for the greater good. In the following weeks, the Empire stabilized. Systems once on the brink of rebellion pledged allegiance, inspired not by fear, but by the example of leadership and courage they had witnessed. The Queen enacted reforms to strengthen governance, improve collaboration between species, and ensure that justice and fairness guided the Empire's decisions. Elias continued to serve as an advisor, strategist, and symbol of hope, working tirelessly to maintain peace and prepare for future challenges. Beyond the Empire, humans across the galaxy began to gain recognition. Once dismissed as weak and fragile, they were now seen as capable, intelligent, and resilient. Stories of Elias' deeds spread, inspiring others to act courageously, to think strategically, and to uphold the values of integrity, empathy, and determination. One evening, after a long day of council meetings and strategic planning, the Queen invited Elias to walk with her on the balcony overlooking the capital city. The twin moons cast a silver glow across the landscape, and the stars beyond twinkled like distant fires. For a moment they walked in silence, the weight of the galaxy and the enormity of their achievements filling the space between them. "You have changed everything," the Queen said quietly. "Not only through your actions, but through what you have inspired. Humanity is no longer underestimated. The galaxy will never see your species the same way again." Elias looked out at the stars. "I do not seek recognition, Your Majesty. I only wish to protect life, preserve balance, and show that courage and integrity can make a difference. If humanity can inspire hope, then I have done what I must." The Queen nodded. "And you have done more than that. You have shown me and the galaxy that leadership and courage are not bound by legend or technology. They are defined by choices, by actions, and by the willingness to act for what is right, even when the odds seem impossible." In the days that followed, alliances were strengthened, enemies reconsidered their actions, and peace returned to regions that had once teetered on the brink of chaos. Elias' presence continued to inspire, not through fear or power, but through example. Soldiers and civilians alike looked to him as a symbol of what humans could achieve, and the galaxy began to recognize the strength, intelligence, and moral clarity that his species possessed. As the sun rose over the capital, casting golden light across the city, the Queen reflected on what had transpired. She had witnessed courage, strategy, and integrity on a scale she had never imagined possible. She had seen a human stand against impossible odds, unite disparate forces, and inspire hope across the stars. And she had realized that the true measure of leadership was not fear or domination, but the ability to inspire, protect, and act with unwavering moral clarity. Elias Rowan, the human who had arrived in her throne hall weeks ago, had transformed not only the Empire but the galaxy itself. He had proven that humanity could rise above expectations, face danger with courage, and act with intelligence and integrity. Through his actions, the galaxy had learned that strength is not only measured by weapons or technology, but by the choices one makes, the courage one displays, and the willingness to act for the greater good. And so, as the stars continued their eternal dance across the galaxy, the Queen and her council knew that the future would be different. Humanity had shown its potential, and through Elias Rowan, the galaxy had glimpsed the extraordinary. The story of courage, leadership, and moral clarity had reached a new chapter, and the legacy of one human would inspire generations to come. Peace had been restored, but the galaxy would never forget the lessons learned. That courage could overcome fear, intelligence could outmatch power, and one human, acting with integrity, could change the fate of countless worlds. Elias Rowan stood once more on the balcony, looking at the stars, knowing that his journey was far from over. Yet he felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that through action, courage, and steadfast integrity, he had shown the galaxy the best of humanity, and in doing so had forever altered the course of history. The Queen stood beside him, silent, yet her expression reflected understanding, respect, and hope. Together, they watched as the galaxy settled into a fragile, shining peace, one that promised new alliances, new challenges, and the enduring possibility that courage and integrity could triumph even in the vast and unpredictable universe.